All right, folks, it's time for the latest installment of Prospects for the Pride. We're bringing on a name you probably know pretty well by now if you've been listening to the podcast. Nick Kostora, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited to sit on this side of the podcast, Brandon. Let you lead things off and guide me through this. I'm totally new here.
Well, hopefully you won't choke too bad. I know you don't have too many reps over there. But we're going to go ahead and dive right into Trae Waynes from Michigan State, cornerback. Top cornerback, according to some, at least a first rounder, I think, in almost everybody's estimation. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning, Nick. How and when did Trae Waynes appear on your radar?
Well, on the radar, I mean, living where I am in Michigan, you see the Sparty games all the time. I'm more of a Michigan guy, but watching State, you see him week in and week out, and Trae Waynes is someone that just jumps off the film. I mean, his speed and his closing ability, the things he can do as a defensive back, you notice, especially at the college level, he was a step above most of the guys he was covering. He's a tremendous talent, and getting to see Sparty, even their games against lower competition, Indiana, Minnesota, teams like that. Trae Waynes really could take over a ball game.
Yeah, he is well, he's quite the stud, and I am actually a Spartan alumnus, so I'm kind of a little familiar with the football team. Uh, so what would you say his biggest strength is?
I love his fit as a press man corner. I mean, he's someone that if you read any of his scouting reports that are out there from some of the experts, he's a great bump and run guy, and it's true. He's a very physical corner, but he's got the closing speed that he needs. If someone does get away from him, he's going to track him down. I think we saw that most at the combine when he ran that 40 time. It was a 4.31. I think it was the fastest time for a corner. It was interesting. He ran the fastest corner time, and then Langford, State's running back, ran the fastest 40 for running back. So Spartans had a good showing at the combine. And Trae Waynes he'll get physical. He's not afraid to make tackles. He had quite a few of them at State when the plays came his way. He's just an all-around physical corner. We'll get into his weaknesses in a bit. It's the zone stuff where you're going to question him a little bit more. But as a physical bump and run corner, there's definitely no one better in this draft class.
Well, yeah, he's definitely got he's got that size, that 6'1" size, and he's definitely aggressive. You have to love the way that he really attacks the wide receiver and his hips. I know I've seen some people, and it was always at least for the tape that I've watched, and especially like against Penn State where he has that crazy pick. I
Yeah,
mean, his hips are like on a swivel,
yeah.
like a fishing swivel. I mean, that guy, it just seems like he can adjust them real quick. His pro day numbers kind of got everybody back there. But what are the things he doesn't do well? What would you say his biggest weakness is?
Well, being such a good man coverage corner, he does lock into one guy. You don't see him really make adjustments or change where he's going and adjust to the ball in the air if he has to go somewhere else or move around again. That kind of falls into the zone category. Um, Sometimes he can cause penalties. He's very physical. Like I said, he's an aggressive corner, which you like that, but you have to be able to work with it in the NFL. They're very touchy with the flags, and he's someone I think over the last 2 years he caught 9 flags, so he's got to get better at that. He can be really grabby, but I mean these are things that are very correctable. Quicker receivers can give him some fits. He's more of a fast guy than he is a quick accelerator, in my opinion. He doesn't transition that well, but that's something that can be taught at the next level is getting better hips and footwork and transitions. Those are the penalties are the thing that I would think is the biggest weakness.
Well, and then speaking of the next level, and that's obviously he's going to have to be careful about those hands where they call him a lot more at
Yeah.
the NFL level. But why would he be a fit in Detroit?
I mean, he's just such a dominant corner at the collegiate level, and he's someone that's going to he's going to go in the top 15 probably. It'd be really lucky if he did fall to Detroit, and obviously Detroit isn't a team that's gone after corners in the first round. It's been quite a long time since they have, and we saw him go with Slay in the second round a couple of years ago. But a bigger corner with this kind of press man ability for Terrell Austin is just a really scary thing. He would be such a good fit schematically, and you could really just not have to worry about helping him in coverage. He's going to lock down one receiver. That's something that Detroit really they've struggled to find guys that have that ability. And if you can allow your corners Glover Quinn and James Ahedebo to not have to worry about what's going on that side of the field, that's just a huge boost to this defense, especially with a defensive line that's going to be in flux next season. We don't really know if they're going to be able to rely just on the linemen to get to the quarterback and not have to blitz their linebackers. If the linebackers can blitz more. They don't have to worry about dropping into coverage and helping the corners. I mean, there's a lot of positives and very few negatives to bringing in a guy like Trae Waynes for the Lions defense specifically.
Well, and I think you hit on a lot of stuff there. And it was a pretty softball question. We all knew that was coming because well, Detroit needs another corner.
Mm,
But one of the biggest benefits I think to us and the listeners is that Ziggy Ansah is going to
shot,
have
yeah.
more time to get after the quarterback thanks to the coverage downfield, which will result in more Ziggy Ansah sacks and thus shots. So it's a win-win-win. I mean, everybody's winning.
Yeah.
It's great. I think there's really no point in asking where you see him going in the draft because I don't think anybody's going to argue that he's a first round prospect.
Right.
But do you think Detroit has a chance at 23? Would they have to move up, and would you?
See, I think the interesting if he for some whatever reason slips by Minnesota at 11, who I think has the biggest need at cornerback in that first 10 to 12 picks of the draft is Minnesota. So if he does slip by them at 11, I'd love to see Detroit make a move for him. The problem is to move up, that's normally where you trade your later picks, and Detroit doesn't have a 4 or a 5. So what are their bargaining chips? Are they moving picks from next year's draft? Because 6 and 7, your 6th and 7th round picks, which you have 2 7ths this year, it's not helping you move up into the first, move up anywhere in the first round to go after a Trae Wayne. So on paper, it sounds great. I think if he does slip by Minnesota at 11, you have to consider it because he's not going to be on the board long. But you definitely wouldn't consider jumping them just because of how much it would take to do so. If for whatever reason he slips by 11, then see what you can come up with. But it's going to be tough without a 4th and a 5th round pick. He's someone that you're hoping on a whim that he falls to 23. I highly doubt he does, but he's such a premier talent that it's someone if he did, you'd run to the podium.
Well, another guy that he was a higher draft that the Lions' top draft pick last year has obviously caused a little dissension between us.
Has he?
And it's because Detroit was so adamant, and they did run to the podium to go get that superior talent, that premier
Yeah.
talent. But one of
Yeah.
the things that one of our biggest bones of contention between you and I, as far as Eric Ebron, is that he did not have an immediate impact.
Right.
Quarterback is traditionally a tough position to do so. Do you think Trae Waynes can be the exception?
Well, just because of how much of a need Detroit has at the position and the fragility of Rashean Mathis, I don't know how much we can count on him to be an every down player for the next season for 16 games. Trae Waynes would be able to find an immediate role, uh, almost certainly. And I love Darius Slay on the one side. I love how he's developing. But being able to work in rotationally, having Waynes there behind Mathis and potentially overtaking him, what have you, yes, he'd have an immediate impact in Detroit. He'd have an immediate impact almost anywhere he went in the top of the draft because the need for corner is stronger with those teams. It, there's no depth to Detroit. I mean, if you look at their depth chart, it's you like Mathis and you like Slay, but what are you looking at behind him? It's Bill Bentley. It's what is it, Mohamed Cisse? I mean, is he still on the back
Yeah,
there? I
yeah,
mean,
he's
it's
probably
yeah,
fifth or fourth right now.
yeah. I mean, that's a name you have to look at. So yes, he'd have an immediate role just from a depth perspective. Even if he doesn't start, he'd be in the rotation immediately.
Well, and I think you kind of picked up our last question there, and it was if anybody needs to go to make room for him. I'm going to go ahead and answer for you, Nick.
Yeah,
No,
right.
you
No.
just don't have to re-sign Cassius Vaughn because they have the interior Bentley and Lawson. They could be the right guys to cover the slot positions and to handle the interior. But yeah, Detroit desperately needs another outside guy. Nick, I want to thank you for joining us. Did you have any parting shots for us?
Let me just throw one thing out. It's that Detroit hasn't ever gone after. You don't see them go after corners in the first round, but the need I don't think has been as strong as it is now. So if a corner like Waynes was still on the board in the first round, I think this is when, even though we mention it just about every year, as far back as I remember Prince Amakamura being the target a couple of years ago, we bring it up every year. It could be a corner. I think this is the strongest I've ever felt that if a quality corner is there, Detroit really could go after one in the first round.
Well, folks, he is Nick Kostora. You can find him by listening to the rest of our shows because, well, he's the co-host. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But this is Prospects for the Pride, a series, kind of an offshoot of Lions Central Radio, our podcast. We definitely suggest you check that out if you like this. You can check out the website, lionscentralradio.com, for all the Prospects for the Pride videos, links to my articles, some blog posts from Nick. So, folks, thanks for listening, and go Lions.